Hello everyone, today we'll be analysing Emerald at Katong. We'll be running through every single layout as well as what the launch price strategy might be. Now the purpose of this video is to help those of you considering getting a unit at launch. Because when it comes to your turn to choose a unit, you don't have a lot of time, so it's crucial you know which units you are prioritizing as well as the walk-away price, which we'll touch more on later. So without further ado, let's get started. So for Emerald, it's located in the heart of D15, which is the Katong area. It's brought to you by Sim Lian, who is a very experienced developer that has given us many successful resale condos like Treasure at Tampines. Now, despite being in the industry for so many years, this is actually one of their first few condos in D15, so it's quite exciting to see what they are bringing to the table. Now, in the market, Sim Lian has a reputation for having efficient layouts. So just based on my first impressions of what I've seen, I do think there are a few outstanding ones which I'll go into more detail later on. So let's have a look at the overview of the development. You have 846 units. So this will be a big condo. Now there are 6 blocks that range from 18 to 21 floors. You will also get a basement car park of about 80% of the condo capacity, which I think is a pretty good number. And if you are thinking of going for this condo, just keep in mind that the TOP estimated is about 2029. So in terms of unit mix, you'll be able to get a 1+ study all the way to a 5-bedroom, with the highest number being in the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom. So let's look at the site plan. There'll be 2 main facing. So either you're facing the facilities inside, so a nice pool view, or you're facing outside. Now, if you are facing outwards, there are a few variations. So on one side, you're facing your neighbor, which will be Head Court as well as Tembusu Grand. And on the other side, you're actually facing an open green field now. And that field will potentially be another development in the future. Now, if you're facing towards the Tanjong Katong side and you're on a higher floor, you do have a chance of getting a landed view, but there might be a premium on it. So how much more is it worth to pay for a premium view here? We'll be discussing more on that later too, and what makes sense for this area. So in terms of facilities, you are really not short of it. You have so many swimming pools. There is a lap pool, lounge pool, spa pool, kids pool. You also have a tennis court. And very interestingly, the developer is also in charge of building a neighborhood park in front of the condo. So you can see it's right in front towards the Tanjong Katong roadside, and it will be next to the healthcare side. So not only do you have the children's playground in your condo, if you have kids, you have a park to go down to every day, which I think is pretty nice. Let's look at the layout starting with a 1+ study. So for 1+ study, you have just one layout, which is 484 square feet, and there will be 4 stacks, mainly facing outwards and 1 facing inwards. So my first impression of this 1+ study is it is not a cookie cutter layout. Now if you look at where they place the study, I quite like it because this will make your master room feel a lot bigger. And if you look at next to it, it is next to a full-length window, which means that if you do study there, it makes the space feel a lot brighter. Now, in many other 1+ study in other condos, you will see that traditionally they like to put the study here, which is okay, but it can end up feeling a bit dark and not so conducive sometimes. Now, I would say there is a setback for this layout. If you have a look at this window here, it is next to an AC latch, which means the window will only be half, whereas the window next to it is full. So your master room might end up feeling a bit darker. Now, who is this for? For 1 bedroom, we want to think about whether it is better to rent out after, or is it more targeted at capital growth with own stay? And to understand that, we want to look at the rental yield. So looking at the rental yield for D15, on average, a 1 bedroom is renting 3,000 to 3,500. So assuming we purchase this at 1.2 million, for example, this will bring a rental yield to 3 to 3.5%. Now this is okay, but it's definitely not the highest. For this quantum, you can go to other districts and get a higher rental yield if that is your priority. So I would say this is more geared towards capital growth, but there will be a few things you need to keep in mind if that is your objective. So for those coming to buy in D15, sometimes one bedrooms can take a bit longer to sell. So you must plan to hold for a while after TOP. So for example, if you're buying and you're going to rent out after TOP, even if you rent at 3,000 and 3,500, you will still need to top up for your mortgage. So just plan for that. But who I feel this works really well for, if you are a single or a couple that doesn't mind one bedroom for the D15 address and convenience, instead of getting a 2-bedroom elsewhere, you can get this and slowly stay inside until you get the right price after a TOP. So you're not in a rush. So really depending on what your priorities are and what your circumstances are, you can consider the 1+ study and plan accordingly, but just keep in mind all these factors, which is the rental yield as well as the timeline. Now let's look at the 2 bedrooms. Now in my opinion, this is going to be the unit type that wipes out first at launch. Now why do I say that? If we look at the price of the other new leasehold condos in the area, we can already see that for 2 bedroom there are many transactions that are above 2 million and ranging from 2,700 to 2,900 PSF. This is going to be a very similar situation to Lentor Mansion. So back when they launched, they had 2-bed 1-baths at 1.1 million, when their neighbor Lentor Modern had already transacted for similar at 1.8 million. So for the buyers buying in even at 1.1, 1.3 or anything higher, it still feels like a good deal. So coming back to D15, there is a chance that Emerald, based on estimated, will have units between 2,500 to 2,600 PSF, which means you have quite a few options below 2 million. But honestly, for a 2-bedroom here, I would suggest not to go anything above 1.75 million. So why that number? Anything above that, your buyer stamp duty is going to eat into a large portion of your profit buffer. So you can prioritize the units based on the pricing. Now, that being said, which layout should we then go for? So for 2 bedrooms, there are 2 types of layouts. Both are dumbbell. Now for the smaller one, which mostly faces inwards, you have the usual layout. So a lot of condos will have this type of dumbbell layout. And for this one, I do appreciate you can have a good queen size bed in both. Your living area is okay. But my biggest pet peeve with this layout is always the dining area. So if you look, they just tuck it in front of the kitchen towards the wall. Now please raise your hand if you have been a victim of this, but if you're the person sitting inside here, it will be so hard for you to come out and it's not very comfortable. And even if you're sitting on the outside, once you push out the chair, you're going to end up blocking your bedroom door. So it's not very comfortable as a proper dining area. Which brings us to 646 square feet layout. Now for the top half, it is very similar to the smaller one, but there are some differences. So for the dining area, you have a proper dining area here. With space around your dining table, you can eat comfortably. It works. Now the other thing would be the kitchen. So it is tucked here. So when you're prepping food, as say you're working in the living room, it's going to be out of sight. But the added benefit is with the 2 walls here, you can comfortably build more upper storage also. So it's way more convenient. Now versus 624, yes, you can against this wall, but on this side, it is hanging airspace. So even though you can build, it is subject to the infrastructure. And honestly, when you want to build a big cabinet in the middle of the air, when you walk into your home, it will block the view. So not so ideal. So that being said, my top choice would be 646 square feet and choosing an outer unit compared to my second choice, which is 624 square feet. Now, why? Now, you can see that for 624, it is mostly inner facing, whereas for the bigger unit, it is mostly outer facing. So definitely for a better view, there will be a premium for most developments. So if I assume for the better view, it is 100 PSF more, this means that for my 624 square feet at 2,650 PSF, it comes to about 1.653. So if my worst facing, which is my larger unit, is 100 PSF less, that means my smaller unit is going to cost 6,300 more. So in this case, your larger unit might be cheaper than your smaller unit, and that's why I'll prioritize to go for that, and you can even go for a higher floor in that case. Moving on to the 2-bed plus study. Now for this size, you have 3 different layouts of 678 square feet to 700 square feet. So let's have a look at what are the differences. So for 678 square feet, this looks very familiar because it's very similar to the larger 2-bedroom that we just went through. Now the main difference would be there is a study placed here on the left side, Whereas if you compare it to 689 square feet, that's where we'll see more differences. So if you look at where the study is placed for 689, it is tucked in between the room and the bathroom. So this gives me a lot more options. I could knock it down to make a bigger room, make it a walk-in wardrobe, or enclose it to make it a study. Now this definitely gives me a lot more option versus the smaller layout, which I could enclose if I want, but definitely it doesn't have as much flexibility. Now the other big difference will be the kitchen. So for this kitchen, if I want to enclose it, it really does feel more like a proper kitchen where you have walking space. Versus for 678, if you enclose, it might feel a bit tight to walk into. So between the two, I definitely would prioritize 689. Now, if we compare 689 to 700 square feet, now to be honest, when I was looking at these two, it really took me a while to see what's the difference because they're so similar. But the main difference is just where the fridge is placed over here and here. Now, because the two layouts are so similar, there is a high chance that the developer will place the premium on the facing instead. Now, if you notice for 689 square feet, most of the stacks are facing inwards, whereas for 700 square feet, you have just one stack facing outwards. So that being said, my top choice would be first choice being 700 square feet facing outwards, because similar to the 2-bedroom, there is a high chance you'll be able to get a larger unit at a similar or lower price than the smaller one facing inwards. Now, of course, my second choice would be the similar layout, which is 689 square feet. We are done with the 2 bedrooms. Now let's go into the 3 bedrooms, which a lot of you are excited for. Now there are 6 different layouts for 3 bedders and 3 different types, which would be the standard, the study, and the flexi. Now before we go into the differences of the different layout, when deciding which 3-bedroom to go for, it is important to consider who is your future buyer. And depending on the layout, that can look very different. So let's first look at the 2 smaller layouts, which is 883 square feet and 904 square feet. Now both from 3-bedroom onwards, you'll start to have an enclosed kitchen. So of course for 3-bedroom, likely a large portion will be for own stay. So I do like that the kitchen comes with a glass panel also, because when you walk in, it will make the space feel brighter and more open. And of course, that feeling is important when you're buying for own stay. You want to have a good walk-in feel for your future buyer. There's also a comfortable space for a 6-seater dining in both, which is crucial for families. Now these 2 layouts are pretty similar, except for the walkway, there will be some size difference. So how then do we decide which to go for? Now the first question to ask ourselves is, who is the future buyer buying this? Now a high chance and large portion will be HDB, prime HDB upgraders. So we're talking about Bidadari, Henderson, Dawson, but also it is important to ask ourselves how affordable and easy is it for them to upgrade over here. So let's take Bidadari as an example. Now for a 5-bedroom back at BTO, they bought at about 600,000, and today on average it is selling at 1.2 million. That means their net proceed, including the CPF they have put in, comes in back at about 750,000. Now, if we get a 3-bedroom at Emerald today, let's take the larger layout, 904 square feet at 2,600 per square feet. The price is 2.35. So 25% of that with the buyer stamp duty adds up to 674,000, which means with that 750,000 they had, it is easy for them to down pay for a 3-bedroom here without even touching their savings yet, and they will still have extra to finance their mortgage later on. Now, what about somebody buying today? Can you still sell in the future to them, and will the price still be accessible? So let's say you have bought and you want to sell at 2.6 million in a few years' time. So that would mean that for 25% of that, as well as the buyer stamp duty, the down payment is 749,600, which means that with the 750,000, they can still down pay without touching their savings. And that is assuming that the price hasn't gone up yet. If the market has moved up for condo at that point, it's likely HDB will move up as well, and they may have even more buffer. So with that being said, I would prioritize first choice 883 square feet. Now why? If you notice, there is only one stack for 883 square feet over here facing outwards. Now for 904 square feet, you have more stacks, but there's also one facing the same direction, and they are right next to each other. So assuming that they have the same PSF, which is 2,550, how much are you paying for a bigger unit? the price difference for the exact same facing, same floor would be 53,550 more for the 904 square feet. Now for this amount, again, we are thinking about who is the buyer, which is upgraders. Now for upgraders, affordability is key and 50,000 is significant. So in this case, I would prioritize 883 square feet first, and also because it has one stack only, it is more rare. And of course, 904 square feet after that. Moving on to the 3-bed plus study. Now there's one layout I really love for this size, which we'll go into in a bit. Now let's first look at these 3 layouts. Now I've placed them together because they are quite similar. So the difference between the 3-bedroom and 3 plus study is now you'll have a study area, a wash closet, as well as a storeroom. So if we just compare 969 and 990, they are actually very similar except for the fact that you have slightly deeper of a storeroom from 990. Now 990 to C5 Flexi, so C4S and C5 Flexi, they are actually the exact same layout except for the Flexi layout, there is one key difference. Now for this wall over here, you can hack, whereas for the other, you cannot. So if you want to have a bigger dining area or enclosable study, then the Flexi might work better for you. Now comparing the 990 to the largest 3-bedroom, which I absolutely love, and I will show you why, there's a 1023 square feet layout. Now for this, the kitchen, I'll show you the differences. Now when you walk in, you have the kitchen. Instead of a half glass panel, you have a full glass panel. So this further adds the effect when you walk in to have a very open space. Like the space will look big because it's unblocked. Versus you imagine when you walk in, your kitchen is 2 opaque white walls, the feeling will be very different. And you also have the comfortable 6-seater area. You can see here there is space around the table. You can properly host versus the smaller one, which is tucked at the side here. Now because you have this bigger space over here, it is also going to feel wider. In fact, it reminds me of Tembusu Grand's 4-bedder if you have ever been. If not, have a look at the SHOWFLAT, where when you walk in, the dining area is actually wider than the living, and this makes the room feel much bigger. Now, the other thing for me is the study. Now, I love that the study is tucked in like a proper other room, and it comes with a window. Whereas the others, you will only have a tiny window over here. And you will also have a full-size storeroom, which if you really wanted to have an even larger dining area, that can be knocked. So of course, the question is for 1023 square feet, who are we targeting? Now for anything that is 969 square feet for 3-bedroom and above, this means the quantum is already 2.5 million and above. So the group of buyers is very different than the 2 smaller layouts because the priority is no longer affordability. At this range, they'll definitely have more options. So when they walk in, they want to feel good. And especially in D15, there needs to be a sense of luxury with the buyers coming here. So out of all, definitely for 1023 square feet, this will feel very luxurious when you walk in and very spacious for a 3-bedroom. So that being said, you already know my answer. My top choice for a 3-bedroom will be 1023 square feet. And my second choice would be the 2 smallest unit, being 883 square feet first and then 904 as the second. Now the other in-between sizes, you can go for them, but I wouldn't prioritize them. And the reason is we want to be the best in either category first. So either I am the most appealing to the luxe category of buyers, or I am most appealing to the upgrader pool of buyers. Then later we consider the other layouts. So that is it for 3-bedroom plus study. 4 bedrooms. Now at this size, the quantum is easily over 3 mil. So what do the buyers of this amount want? They want to like the unit and feel good when they walk in, have luxury, have comfort. Because at this amount, I could go to a lot of other places and have more options. So for this group, this size, layout is really key. Let's have a look at the impact of layout on profit before we go into Emerald's layout. So this is the Crest and Principal Garden, which is located in the Alexandria area and are right next door to each other. So back then when they were sold around the same price at 1,600 plus PSF. Today, Principal Garden, when they sold at a similar time as Crest, made 730,000 in profit, while the Crest made 247,000. Now why? Let's have a look at the differences in their layout. Now the first jarring thing you'll notice is the Crest bedroom you have all these odd shaped corners, which will mean more space is wasted. Versus principal garden that has regular size shaped rooms that can fit up to a queen size bed. Now, when you walk in, the feel is also very different. The crest, when you come in here, it's going to feel quite narrow. Versus principal garden, when I come in, I have this wide living room here, which will really make the space feel so much more open and spacious. And even for my kitchen, this is so much smaller than my principal garden one, even though the square foot is not that far apart. But the main difference we will see here is the private lift. Now, with the private lift, you really have that feeling of exclusivity, and the type of buyers that look for this are more willing to pay a premium for the unit. So you can clearly see that for principal garden, it is so much better of a layout targeted at the luxury demographic, which is why they did so much better when it comes to the resale market. So now coming back to 4 bedrooms at Emerald of Katong. How many of those features do we see in the layouts here? Let's first have a look at the 2 smallest 4 bedrooms. So for 4 bedrooms here, 1152 square feet. Now I place these two together because they are the same layout, just mirror facing. Now for 4 bedroom, you will have a dry kitchen. For this layout, you also have a larger dining area that can fit up to an 8-seater. What I do like is also the study. Now for the study here, you can knock to make a bigger room, same size as your master, or it can even be a connecting baby room. But I would say the biggest setback is when you walk into the unit, don't you feel that it feels a lot like the large 3-bedroom we were talking about just now? Now, if I'm going to pay a 4-bedroom price already, I want to feel like my unit is more grand when I walk in. And when you come in here, it will just feel quite narrow compared to some of the other 4-bedroom layouts we are about to look at. So let's look at the next biggest, which is 1259. Now 1259 with one feature has won over 1152 to me. Now the minute you come in here, if you remember for principal garden, you have this wide layout. And if you notice, most of the stacks for it are facing towards the pool. So when I come in, I have a big open view of water, the facilities. This will feel very good. Now going to the next one is 1270, which I placed together with 1259. They are also similar except for the fact that the walkway is a bit different, so I won't go too much into this. And lastly, 1302 square feet. Now, I really love this layout for 4-bedder. Why? Now, first thing, when you walk into here, the feeling is very different than the smaller 1259. You have a full glass panel, which again, like the large 3-bedroom, it really opens up the space. When first thing you walk, you see the whole house versus an opaque wall. Whereas here, you only have half. You also have the wide layout over here. So that is nice. And I love the yard. The yard you can cordon off as a separate area for your helper's quarter, or even if you're using it as storage, you don't have to look at your WC while you are cooking. Even for the stove here, it's bigger what is given than the smaller layout. And for your study, it's also properly tucked in like a room with a window and can be connected to the other bedroom. Now, it's important to note for this size onwards 1302, this will actually be located in the Lux block in Emerald. So I'll show you where that is later. This is over here at the corner. So for this particular stack, there will only be 4 stacks of units and they'll all be large units. Whereas the other non-Lux one, there'll be 6 stacks. The finishing for this block is also different. It'll be more luxe, so you have marble flooring, for example. But how much is it worth paying more of a premium for a luxe block? I'll discuss that in a bit as well. So for the other layout, it'll be 1313, which is similar to 1302. So this will also be in the luxe block, but at the corner. The layout is overall the same except for the walkway as well. So how much more should you be paying for the luxe block? Now, I do think having this luxe block status with the different finishing is a bonus because remember, the buyer for this size wants luxury and comfort. So if the launch day comes out about a 5%, anything that is 5% or less in premium, I think you can go for it. I don't think that for Simlian, they're going to put 10% on a premium of this block. So I do think the 4-bedroom, especially the 1302 square feet, that will be my first choice. Because when you walk in, it really feels so different compared to the other 4 bedrooms. And for my second choice, it will be 1259 square feet. because you still have that wide living space. We have made it to the last bedroom type, the 5 bedrooms. Now let's have a look at the layout. For the smallest, it'll be 1475 and the largest will be 1561. Now both only have one stack each and they'll both be located in the Lux block. So for 1475, it feels quite similar to the large 4-bedroom we just went through, except for the walk-in wardrobe area. It is a proper cordon of space. So it really feels like a walk-in wardrobe versus the 4 which is tucked at the side. Now where you really see a big difference is the 1561 square feet. Because aside from the wide frontage you also have, it is a larger living room that is deeper. And remember principal garden example, you have a private lift here, which is very important to give this category of buyer that feeling of exclusivity. So between the two, I think the private lift for 5 bedroom is very important and I would go for the 1561 square feet. But if we really compare to the grand scheme of things in D15, I wouldn't say this is the most luxe feeling layout. For example, if we compare to the Continuum, just notice the entrance. Now for ours, we come in here. Yes, we already have a large living room, but look at Continuums. When you come out, you have a huge living room and already it feels so much more grand. But then again, the square feet for this is about 1,900 plus, so it puts it in a completely different quantum. So what this size of 1,561 for a 5 bedroom is good for, though it's not the biggest, it's quite a normal size, is it is able to keep it affordable. So at this size, likely we'll see units between 4 mil to 5 mil. Now, if we look for a 5 bedroom in D15 between that amount, you'll have very little options. In fact, if you go online and search, there are only 19 apartments today, most of which are built in the 1970s and 1980s and are much older. So if you want something new, because there's not a lot of supply of 5 bedrooms in D15, you can still go for this and there will definitely be buyers in the future. Now I've come to the end of this video. I hope you found this helpful. Do give this video a like if you like more content like this so we can keep doing them for other projects as well. And I'll catch you all next time.